talk about gift that keeps on giving, folks. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
So they're done. They are really done. So I declared them dead last week after they lost to Detroit. They kind of had to win out to have a realistic shot. They lose to the Lions, but then Philly loses to the Chargers. Like, there's a chance if the Philly goes 2-2 the rest of the way, Dallas wins out. Dallas' schedule, to a degree, kind of favorable. And that's that did not happen. They lost last night to the Minnesota Vikings 34-26. JJ McCarthy was quite good. It's back-to-back weeks, by the way, that McCarthy's played well. I, to say the very least, was not a JJ McCarthy believer. I thought at Michigan he was the very definition of a system quarterback. Liked his arm, but didn't like his accuracy. His deep ball wasn't great. That was very much a Blake Corum. Did you see Blake Corum yesterday at the Rams? Holy cow. It was a Blake Corum offensive line, defense reliant, a football team with Jim Harbaugh. JJ McCarthy was at best like the seventh most valuable player on that team. I mean, he was. Blake Corum, the defensive line, O-line. Tight ends, by the way, Colston Loveland. But yesterday against the Dallas Cowboys, and talking, because again, McCarthy played well. As far as Dallas is concerned, I have 4 words for Dallas Cowboys fans on 2 things. One, I think most Cowboys fans kind of saw coming, most honest ones anyway. And the second one, it's like not even, I thought it wasn't even debatable. Cowboys fans argued with me all season. 4 words are, I told you so, on 2 things. One of which, some Cowboys fans are like, no, you didn't tell me so because I expected it. The Cowboys defense is nothing short of atrocious. I saw a stat earlier today, which is kind of unbelievable. If I can pull this up on my phone. Again, we weren't able to make it a graphic in time, but it is insane. The Cowboys defense this year against opposing quarterbacks. Do we have the numbers? Here it is. Here are the numbers of opposing quarterbacks facing the Dallas Cowboys this season per game. 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, average about half an interception, 68% completion. Those are comparable to the numbers of Aaron Rodgers in his 2020 MVP campaign. Like, yards identical, touchdowns, Aaron slightly higher, picks identical, 0.4 to 0.3, identical, and completion percentage, 68 is what Dallas gives up. Aaron had a 70% completion in his 2020 MVP campaign. So essentially, quarterbacks facing the Dallas Cowboys this year are 2020 Aaron Rodgers. That ain't great. It's almost as if trading one of the 5 best defensive players on the face of the earth, God bless him, he's, knee injury, knock on wood, hopefully Micah comes back and is better than ever next year. He's had the best year of his career this year prior to the injury. It's almost as if trading that guy was going to make you worse on defense. I mean, EPA, which isn't a stat we do much on the show, but the Cowboys with Micah, I think were like a top 5 defense last year, and without him when he was hurt, they were the worst defense of football. Almost as if missing that guy would make you a lot worse. If you took Myles Garrett off the Browns, don't think they'd be very good. I mean, the Steelers, that TJ Watt, unfortunately, we're going to be without TJ tonight. Steelers, that TJ Watt, 1-10. Defensive players still hold immense value. Elite pass rushers in particular hold immense value. But some Cowboys fans are like, yeah, I knew we were going to be worse on defense without Micah Parsons. It's just whether we can hit all these draft picks. Well, based on Jerry's recent history, I don't have much hope there, but we'll see. Maybe he can redeem himself. But the thing that majority of Cowboys fans argued with me all season long, and I remain steadfast, didn't move an inch on this. Bryson, you're too hard on George Pickens. He didn't work in Pittsburgh because the quarterback play was bad. It is Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Mason Rudolph. Like, what are you going to do with that? Fair point. Although Justin Jefferson's been dealing with mediocre quarterback play for years. He's the best receiver in football, but that's neither here nor there. He's on his best behavior this year. He's playing well. There was a point in time. Receiving yards, it went Jackson Smith and Jigba, George Pickens. George Pickens was ahead of CeeDee Lamb, wasn't leading the Cowboys, partly because he was hurt, but wasn't leading the Cowboys in receiving yards. It was George Pickens. I said, just wait. It doesn't matter if he's got an elite receiver opposite him. That will draw some attention away from the way that Calvin Austin and others did in Pittsburgh. It doesn't matter if Dak Prescott is 5 Grand Canyons better than whoever the best quarterback in Pittsburgh was. It doesn't matter that he goes from a defense-first culture to an offense-first culture. It doesn't matter if he goes from cold weather to a dome. He's the same guy. He's the same guy that I saw his second year at Georgia, second or third year at Georgia, 2020. Squirt water and Jarrett Garantano, quarterback for Tennessee. Garantano gets tackled out of bounds. George Pickens squirts water at him on the sideline. And that's the least of his issues. Who gets into multiple fights a game. This year's not fights. It's just outright pouting. George Pickens, let's show his numbers. The first 11 games versus the last 3. First 11 games, oh man, couldn't be stopped. 95 receiving yards a game, 8 touchdowns. This last 3 game stretches, 52 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns. And for the second consecutive week, and Collinsworth, who knows as much football as anybody, was on the money. He was talking about, Tim and Tirico were saying how, Richard Sherman, after the game against Detroit, said George Pickens quit, and then he responded to Richard Sherman. And Collinsworth, I think this was third or fourth quarter when he mentioned this. He said, effort was a question for George Pickens. I watched the film, and I'm watching right now. It looks exactly the same. He's out of it mentally. He's not getting the targets early, so now he's going to pout. It's a do-or-die game for the Cowboys. Must win at home against a team whose season is over. Vikings had already been eliminated from playoff contention. When you need him the most, he checks out. If there's something, if he's got a bug up his you-know-what about whatever it is, he taps out. So he's always been his whole career. Back to Georgia, in Pittsburgh. Again, Jerry Dulac on the Rich Eisen show, and I wish we had the soundbite, said it best. Shout out to the great Rich Eisen. Great man and outstanding broadcaster. Rich Eisen asked Jerry Dulac a few weeks ago when he came on the show. Jerry Dulac covers the Steelers. Rich Eisen asked, is Pittsburgh surprised? Or is Pittsburgh kind of like, oh man, didn't see that coming with what George Pickens is doing in Dallas? And Jerry Dulac said, no, they're not surprised at all. They know Dak's better than any quarterback they've had in Pittsburgh. They didn't trade George Pickens because he wasn't good. They didn't trade him because he was unproductive. They traded him because he's an atrocious teammate. They traded him because his effort fluctuates based on the circumstances. And they traded him because he was in a contract year, and no way on planet Earth were they going to give him an extension and entrust him to be one of the cornerstones of their franchise. I have knocked the Steelers for a lot of their decisions offensively, for not valuing the quarterback position, from not valuing an offensive line, to not getting a creative play caller. But I defended Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan in that Steelers front office the day that they traded him. So if you're a Cowboys fan and your 2 most important free agents this offseason are George Pickens and Brandon Aubrey. Now, Brandon Aubrey didn't have a very good game yesterday, but hey, he's allowed to be human for once, right? Who you signing if given the choice between the two? Because you're already paying Dak big money. You're already paying CeeDee Lamb big money. You going to do what the Cincinnati Bengals did? And by the way, T. Higgins is a lot more reliable than George Pickens. A lot more productive consistently. Effort is always there, like it is with most elite receivers. I said this over and over. Defensive coordinators, when game planning against Pittsburgh, or even when they're on the sideline watching in real time, they could tell when George Pickens wasn't getting the football literally based on his body language. They could look at it, oh yeah, 14's not getting it. Okay, so you don't have to worry about him. Or if he is getting it, it's going to be like a 3rd and 15, a 6-yard, curl route, and it's not going to go anywhere. We're going to have him wrapped up, and we're going to force a punt. George Pickens is the guy whose attitude, we know this person at work, in our personal lives, where, man, when they're at their best, it's like, oh my gosh, they're just the best at what they do. But when stuff ain't going exactly how they planned it, not the same. Effort isn't there. That's the one thing. You can't always control your circumstances. You can't control how you deal with them. That's what separates the talented people from the great people in any industry, football included. CeeDee Lamb doesn't always get the ball. Sometimes when George Pickens getting the ball, CeeDee Lamb's left in the back burner. Remember that game against Philadelphia, the second game against Philly when Dallas made the comeback? George Pickens making these acrobatic catches, and CeeDee Lamb can't catch cold. And CeeDee Lamb comes out the very next week, balls out against the Chiefs, balled out against Detroit before the concussion, and not played pretty well last night against Minnesota. Because CeeDee Lamb's a professional. CeeDee Lamb knows, hey, there's a lot invested in me financially and in terms of, hey, Dak needs to know. I'm there. 88, I've got your back. They even mentioned on the broadcast last night, Collinsworth and Tirico, that Dak outright told them, yeah, there came a point in I'm not quoting Dak exactly, but like, yeah, there came a point in time I didn't really trust him that much. Like I saw his head was not where it needed to be. And I pointed out the next day on the show. I'm like, he trusts Jake Ferguson, who'd fumbled in that game. He trusted Ryan Flournoy, Kevontae Turpin. Guys don't have half the talent of Pickens. So if you're Dallas, if you're Jerry Jones, be very, very careful. If you want a franchise tag, I'm okay. I'm not a fan of the franchise tag, but you could defend it. You better not give him a long-term extension. What do we know about money? Money is just like alcohol. It is truth serum. It just makes you more of what you already are. Or exacerbates who you are. You think George Pickens is going to be less of a distraction? Is he going to give more effort when he's not getting targets? Again, a situation tailor-made for a guy in a contract year. Elite quarterback, elite receiver opposite you. Offense first culture as opposed to Pittsburgh. You play in a dome instead of in freezing, frigid Pittsburgh. Same thing. Oh, he'll make a few athletic, acrobatic catches. Make no mistake about it. But when you really need him, he's going to be selfish. And you saw that last night. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.